All right, let's break down the massive market rally we saw on January 22nd, 2026. What a day. It was driven by two really powerful catalysts that just completely flipped the market's mood from, fear all the way to euphoria. So let's dive in and see how it all happened.
And yeah, that's really the big question, isn't it? How does a market that's bracing for a trade war, just teetering on the edge of anxiety, suddenly find itself surging to all-time highs? Well, it's a story about a huge sigh of geopolitical relief and a technological dream that just caught fire all over again. To really get what happened with the rally, we have to go back to the start of the week. And let me tell you, the mood was tense. The entire market was just holding its breath, kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Now, this number here, this tells you everything. The VIX, people call it the fear gauge, was trading above 20. And whenever you see the VIX over 20, that's a big signal of heightened fear and uncertainty among investors. This nervousness was all tied to one single threat, the chance that the US was going to slap major tariffs on Europe over a dispute about Greenland. And that kind of geopolitical mess is exactly what markets hate. And then, boom, everything changed. One single piece of news just cut right through all that anxiety and unleashed this wave of buying. The first major catalyst had arrived, and it had a fantastic nickname. Say hello to the Taco Rally. Yep, TACO, and it stands for Tariffs Are Called Off. President Trump announced that the tariff threat was being withdrawn. They'd apparently reached a framework for future agreement with NATO on the Greenland issue. And just like that, the single biggest risk hanging over the market, it just vanished. And you can see the immediate reaction right here on this chart, the relief. You could just feel it. The S&P 500 and the Dow, they both jumped about 0.6%. But look at the NASDAQ, up a full 1%. That tells you something important. As soon as that fear was gone, money just flooded right back into what investors see as the high-growth stuff, especially tech. But the taco rally? That was only part one. The relief from the tariffs, that just opened the door for a much bigger, much more exciting story to take over. And it shifted the mood from simple relief to some powerful optimism about the future. So what was this bigger story? It was sparked by this incredible statement from NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, over at the Davos Forum. I mean, he wasn't just talking about a good quarter for his company. He was basically framing AI as a multi-trillion-dollar global infrastructure project. This single quote, it reignited the whole AI investment narrative in a huge way. And this wasn't just talk. You could see a clear domino effect ripple through the industry. Huang's vision of a trillion-dollar build-out? Well, that first domino means a boom for hardware makers like NVIDIA. Then the next domino falls. It validates massive funding for software players like OpenAI, which was reportedly raising over $50 billion. And then that cascades down to companies that use AI, like Meta, which surged over 5% as investors started pricing in all that new growth. Now, a multi-trillion-dollar vision like that, it needs a solid foundation to be believable, right? It can't just be a fantasy. It has to be built on a robust economy. And that's exactly what the data was showing, which gave investors all the confidence they needed to buy into this huge story about the future. I mean, case in point, the final number for third quarter GDP was revised upwards to a stunning 4.4% annual growth rate. Remember, earlier in the year, a lot of people were worried about a recession. This number didn't just avoid a recession, it basically crushed the whole idea of one. It reinforced that no landing or Goldilocks scenario where you get strong growth and cooling inflation. And backing up that strong growth was an equally strong labor market. Weekly jobless claims came in at a very low 200,000. This tells you that companies aren't laying people off. The economic engine was just humming along beautifully, which provided the perfect backdrop for a risk-on rally. So we've got geopolitical relief, a massive AI narrative, and a rock-solid economy. How did all of this actually play out in the market? Let's take a look at where the money flowed. This slide shows a classic risk-on rotation in action. Money just poured into the growthy sectors like communication services, led by Meta's big jump, and all the technology stocks, right at the heart of the AI story. On the other side, what sold off? The defensive, risk-off stuff. The dollar, which is a traditional safe haven, got weaker, and defense companies like Saab and Leonardo fell as that tariff threat just evaporated. It was a super clear signal that investors were chasing growth, not safety. And digging into some individual stocks, you see these themes playing out. Tesla jumped over 4% because of optimism around future tech like robocabs. Alibaba popped 5% on news that it's spinning off its AI chip unit. That's a pure AI play. But it wasn't a party for everyone.
Look at Intel and GE Aerospace. They both got hammered, and not because of the big macro story, but because they gave weak, forward-looking guidance. The market sent a very clear message: either join the growth party or get left behind. So, let's just take a step back and look at the bigger picture. In the span of just a few days, the entire psychology of the market shifted from one extreme all the way to the other. This timeline captures it perfectly. The week started with fear, dominated by the VIX over 20 and that tariff threat. Wednesday brought relief when the taco rally kicked off. And by Thursday, we were firmly in a state of greed, fueled by the AI dream and the sight of record highs on the board. I mean, it was an incredibly rapid swing from risk off to risk on. And this brings us to the crucial final question. When fear turns to greed this quickly and markets are printing all-time highs, you have to ask, is this the start of a sustainable new era, powered by a real AI revolution and a strong economy? Or are we just watching a speculative melt-up before an inevitable fall? The data from this one fascinating day provides powerful arguments for both sides, and it leaves the market perfectly poised on a knife's edge.